to bless the result. Camilo Moore started off this session yesterday by talking about truth-telling, honesty, and we all watched the video with all of our heroes and sheroes who we venerate because of their courage, some of which I need right now. When I left the United States of America in 2021 to become, after 257 years of forced migration, ethnocide, and forced assimilation, the first in my family and the first Afro-descendant of Balanta origin to permanently repatriate to our ancestral homeland in Guinea-Bissau, I did so thinking that I had escaped the fear of being the victim of racist police brutality or becoming a new African political prisoner. Little did I imagine I would be coming to this Congress from Guinea-Bissau with the same fear. In 1996, during my last semester at Yale University, I joined the Jericho movement in support of political prisoners, mostly black and brown, in the United States, that was launched by the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. For those of you that don't know, that is the legacy of Malcolm X and his liberation movement. New Haven Black Panther Party member George Edwards showed me how to get resources from Yale University and use them to support political prisoners, most of whom were aging Black Panthers or Black Liberation Movement soldiers. And through George, I made contact with the international concerned family and friends of Mumia Abu Jamal and organized 3 days of activities on the Yale campus for the National Day of Student Protest in support of Mumia Abu Jamal, who is still a political prisoner in the United States of America. After the event, a group of students approached me and told me that FBI agents had come to their dorm and were asking questions about me. That's when I first became the subject of FBI surveillance and living with the threat of arrest and torture. This threat was resurrected on July 14th, 2023, when my house in Bissau was broken into at night while I was sleeping, and 2 laptops were stolen. Was it petty theft or a special op? After all, I had spent 5 years campaigning, charging the Vatican with an illegal declaration of total war against the African people, which launched the transatlantic slave trade, and I had been charging the United States government with state-sanctioned ethnocide that continues today. So I had reason to think that maybe perhaps I was being targeted like so many other new African and Pan-African activists and freedom fighters. So now I come to the 9th Pan-African Congress in Lomé, Togo. According to the communique issued by Pyramid, the Pan-African Citizens Movement, the history of Togo is marked by a foundational crime, the assassination of the first Pan-African president, Sylvanus Olympio, whose body still rests in Benin today. In his place, a regime was installed that has dehumanized the Togolese people and perpetuated injustice, repression, and fear. The Congress, this is their communique, the Congress is being organized behind the backs of the Togolese people, both those inside the country and those in the diaspora. The Togolese people, deprived of the freedom, democracy, and economic prosperity and well-being and dignity, have not been consulted, and they're not filling the halls right here, right now. This excursion and exclusion constitutes a blatant betrayal of Pan-African principles in the very Ubuntu which we are speaking of. In the past 60 years, there are more than 20,000 deaths, 4 million Togolese forced into exile, hundreds of political prisoners tortured and subjected to cruel treatment, forcing 35 people currently on hunger strike while 10 prisoners were murdered, while the ECOWAS Court of Justice has repeatedly condemned Togo for allegations of torture and ordered investigations and the release of their prisoners. So I humbly ask you, Minister Doucet, that at this Congress, Togo takes the lead in a resolution for a general amnesty for political prisoners. Now, before arriving in Lomé, I had helped my sister, comrade and friend, Elder Kushita Makini Chameni, co-founder of the African American Academy in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, to set up an online petition for her husband, Mr. Jukem Chameni, a prominent civic leader and defender of democracy in Cameroon, who is currently arbitrarily detained and faces an imminent trial before a military court, where he risks 15 to 20 years in prison on entirely unfounded charges. He was kidnapped from his home on 24th of October amid a post-electoral crisis marked by more than 2,000 arrests, enforced disappearances, many injured, dozens of deaths, including that of historic figure of the Cameroonian opposition, Anicet Kane, who died in judicial custody. I am suffering from that same post-election crisis in my country of Guinea-Bissau. After refusing to vote in presidential elections in the United States, since that government illegally forced citizenship on my emancipated ancestors without our consent, since then, I did not vote in their elections, but I voted with great pride as a citizen of Guinea-Bissau in the November 23rd elections. And it became obvious that the vote was a choice between good and evil, integrity versus selfishness, good governance versus fear. And I, like more than 55% of the people in 7 out of the 9 regions, voted for Dr. Fernando Diaz da Costa, because it was clear in that moment Providence had raised him up. And as they say, the voice of the people is the voice of God. As I write this, President-elect Fernando Diaz is taking sanctuary in the embassy of Nigeria in Bissau because of the wicked intentions of the illegal transitional military high command. Members of his campaign and supporters are still held in detention with serious human rights violations, particularly against Domingos Simoes Pereira, president of the National Popular Assembly. Others include Marciano Indy, who was arrested at the airport on his way to attend another Congress like this, and Otavio Lopez. Therefore, I was anxious that I might be arrested at Valdo Vieira International Airport in Bissau a few days ago on my way here, and I asked, will I be targeted and arrested when I return to Bissau for assisting the president-elect? Will I be targeted here because I'm calling for a 9th PAC resolution on a general amnesty for political prisoners starting in Togo? Sudan, Congo, Tanzania, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, the Sahel, Guinea-Bissau, the list goes on, everywhere in Africa. This is not the African Renaissance we want. And what is the meaning of our Ubuntu Pan-Africanism if we are living in fear? This leads me to my final point. The overriding ultimate imperative at this time is the political unification of African people for the purpose of mutualizing the sovereignty inherent in each human being, so that there is what Jume Faye Sr., the Secretary General of the Pan-African Federalist Movement, calls positive sovereignty. In other words, we must develop the power, the capacity to enforce the collective will of African people on the African continent and outside the continent in all world affairs. And we must do this by 2030 if we wish to successfully defend against the new wave of neocolonialism and its new forms and weapons, including artificial intelligence. This is the overriding, ultimate, and urgent imperative, because without the political unification of African people and the resultant positive sovereignty, we will not have the power and capacity to implement the solutions to Africa's problems, no matter how brilliant they are. Thank you.